Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Salesforce CRM training. Today we are going to be covering just the general overview of the system. This is designed for new users to really get an understanding of sort of the basic outline of Salesforce, get an understanding of what the application is used for, and some of the benefits that you'll see from that. Today we really won't talk much or really at all about the nitty-gritty of the system. We won't go through navigation or anything like that. This really is a way for beginner or novice users to get an understanding of the terminology, the vocabulary of the system, get an understanding of sort of the general the outline of the system, and again some of the benefits that they'll get from that. So we'll start off with just an overview of what is CRM, what do these letters mean, what do we use it for, get an understanding of how GSA is using the system, and also a quick overview of some of the ways that some of the reasons that others have experienced some difficulties with different CRM systems. Moving from there, we'll talk about some of the benefits that you'll see, and as we go through, I'll sort of dot those around our discussion today. And we'll talk about some of the key vocabulary that you're going to be using really on a daily basis when you're using Salesforce, and then we'll wrap up with the projects that we have open and available for you. So as we get into CRM, into customer relationship management, as it's referred to, what you'll see is that the CRM application, or Salesforce as we know it, is really designed to take all of the things that we're doing as an organization that are seemingly disjointed or unrelated, and it provides a centralized location for all of that data to be stored, to live, as well as give us the ability to call that data, make different reports, analyze it, measure it in different ways. So what we're benefiting from is the idea of taking, again, this very, very large amount of data and providing ourselves with a centralized location for all of that to live and for us to then benefit from. The other really cool thing about Salesforce and about CRMs in general, again, is that it's taking pieces of information that again that are seemingly disjointed or that are seemingly unrelated, and it really finds a way for those things to mesh together. So as we go through, what I want you to think about is the idea of CRM as a symphony or an orchestra. And if you look at this picture here, what you'll notice is a large number of different musicians who are seemingly all sort of doing their own thing, but the product of each of their activities is to make this one piece of very beautiful music. And so if you take the analogy of GSA with all of our different groups and different teams, here you can see different sections of instruments. Some are very active, as you see here. Others here are some of our brass section. Back here in the background is our waiting for their turn to shine, as it were. And the same here with some of our French horns getting ready to play, but not quite in there. So again, we see here several dozen professionals who are all at the peak of their abilities, but at any one time some of these people might be in action and some of these people might be waiting for their turn to contribute. And that's really what CRM comes down to, is that we're all doing different stuff at different times, but if you look at any one person's piece, if you look here at these timpanis, you see that by and large, he's really not doing much. But that doesn't mean when this person has his part to play that it won't be very important. Of course, all of our contributions to this organization are very important, and especially when you take it into consideration with an environment like Salesforce, because it really becomes powerful when we are all contributing to this effort to make, if you'll excuse the analogy, this beautiful piece of music. So what we see is the ability and the purpose behind this system is to take all of that information and finesse it in such a way that the system will automatically, as much as possible, bring important information to the people who need it. And if we're all in there and we're all putting information in the system, success is simply a matter of time, not a question of if, right? So the more that we do to contribute as a team, or contribute to the team as individuals, the better off that we will all be. So, a couple of real-world examples that you guys will see sort of on a daily basis, even though some of these things might escape your immediate attention on a day-to-day basis. So, if you consider medicine, all of us that have been to the doctor have benefited from past experience, right? So, from all of the previous people that have gotten sick and gotten better, and gotten sick and haven't gotten better, and all of those outcomes and all of the knowledge that we gain from that, that helps us make better decisions in terms of how do we, keep people alive and healthy in our modern day environment. And that is very analogous to what is happening in Salesforce, that we are taking this collective information about our different outcomes and different results and different strategies that we're using and figure out what works best. Same kind of thing with law enforcement, and something that anybody who lives in a major metropolitan area now benefits from, but up until a couple decades ago wasn't really widespread. So if we take the example of New York City, up until maybe the 80s, the crime rate there was pretty bad, and something that was of major concern. And what the NYPD did is roll out an effort that they refer to as CompStat, which is basically taking a look at crime rates and where they're happening in order to make decisions onto where to apply their resources, right? Where to station their officers. And so, in a very real world application, taking a look at these metrics and analyzing metrics and taking appropriate action, drastically reduced not only the overall crime rate but the murder rate in New York, and something that has led to New York being one of the more safe cities, or one of the safer cities in the country. And getting to an example that we will all be aware of is the idea that every single professional sports team will utilize strategies similar to CRM. That every single sporting organization will scout their opposition and try to figure out a strategy that will lead to the best outcome. And similarly, they will sort of take stock of their own strengths and weaknesses and craft a strategy that will play to their strengths and play down some of their weaknesses. So it's really all about figuring out what your goal is, what your strategy is, and figuring out what pieces of information you will need to analyze, to measure, and to eventually make your decision from. It's really all about figuring out your strategy, figuring out the information that will help you make your best decision, and then making that decision. Now, when we take that into the context of our world, of our application with GSA, we're not tracking, the shots that we're taking or, the pitches that are thrown and those outcomes, but we are, we are tracking the things that we're doing. So on a one-to-one basis, we're tracking the phone calls that we're making, the emails that we're exchanging with our customers, the meetings that we're having, the proposals that are getting sent out, all of the stuff that one person from our organization is reaching out to one or maybe a group of people from a customer organization, right? So those are more the sort of one-to-one or person-to-person type activities. But we also have things that are more one-to-many. So if we take the example of our marketing emails or the conferences that we hold or the expos or customer trainings that we facilitate, those are all things that one or a group, a small group of people within GSA, actions that they are taking to facilitate information for a large number of either customers or potential customers. 3 and 4 dovetail a little bit for me, but so we're looking at our customer service and our technical support. So the calls that we get through our call center or the outreach that we get from social media, as well as handling our cases and issues in the system from our customers, as well as internals, making sure that we're keeping up to speed with what's happening in the marketplace. So we have the ability to track this information, to measure, analyze, take action on this information, and again, that's really what it boils down to. Last but not least on this list are our business intelligence applications. So we have very large-scale systems like CART, FedBizOps. The list goes on. But if you imagine systems of that scale, there's a lot of potentially valuable information. And when we get to the point where we can integrate Salesforce with our BI systems, and we will then have additional ability to sort of automatically or in an automated way query our BI systems to pull back information that will be either actionable or helpful for us in some way. So when we are able to sort of pull all those things, it helps us craft different tools like our lead generation or our sales pipeline or our management of those business opportunities. What you'll see is that the different portions of the system are sort of like Lincoln Logs or Legos. Like they really do stack on top of each other, and I'll show you this in a more visual way in a few minutes. But the pieces of data within this Salesforce environment very much have a sort of cross-referencing relationship that as you move forward, you're going to see that the more that you use the system, the more detailed picture that you will have of individual customers, of individual organizations. But then moving up a higher level than that, you'll also have the ability to analyze more interesting sort of aggregation totals, like the total lifetime value of a particular customer or a client, or looking at historical information in terms of things that have happened in the past, and try to use that as maybe leading indicators for potential future action. So there's a lot of information that is held in a system like Salesforce that will enable you to take higher level action. There's lots of stuff that will be interesting to you in terms of just having good information, the more mature use of a system like Salesforce really involves using the information inside to come to more mature forms of analysis, to give you, again, those leading indicators on maybe action that you might be able to take. So there's a lot of intelligence in a system like this, and it really is a matter of, again, and I'm going to say this probably multiple times as we go through these different trainings. The quickest way to get good results with a system like Salesforce is to figure out what your goals are, what questions you need to ask of the system, what your strategy is, and set your usage and set your queries of a system in such a way that it is providing you with actionable intelligence to further your goals and your strategies. So, with that, a quick note on why some of these CRM systems fail. By and large, it is a matter of the way that people use the system rather than the way that the system is set up or that the system is created. That being said, that can also be an issue. So one of the first things that we run into is the idea of just an unfocused approach. One of the things that you'll see when you get into Salesforce is just that there is a preponderance of information. There's a lot of stuff in here, and it really is. It really is important. It's really for your own sanity and for your own success in the system that you really hammer down on what portions of the system are important to you, and focus directly on those portions of the system. There's so much stuff in this system because we have the unlimited or enterprise edition of this application, which means that we have just tons and tons and tons of functionality, but really the vast majority of that stuff isn't going to be that important to you. So what I suggest is simply hammering down on the 3, 4, maybe 5 portions of the system that are important to you, hammer down on the reports that are important to you, and don't really worry about the rest right then, right? It's more than appropriate to learn that as you go on, but if you try to take too much on at one point, it'll just be an uncomfortable situation. So the analogy that I give is like a thirsty person trying to drink out of a waterfall. If you just open your mouth and stand under a waterfall, you'll get some water, but by and large it won't be a pleasant experience. So stand off to the side, cup your hands or whatever, but limit your for those of you who are new, limit your exposure as you come in, and help yourself avoid that what some people refer to as sort of analysis paralysis, right? Like limit what you're exposed to so that you can really be successful with those portions. And as you move on, take on more of the system as you start to feel comfortable with it. The second part is sort of speaking to taking on more as you feel comfortable. So what'll happen is a lot of people will take on a whole bunch of stuff, and they won't use it all the time, right? So imagine if you're if you go a full week, right, without putting anything into the system, there will be a lot of things that you did over the course of that week, either exchanging an email or having a quick phone call or stuff like that you're just going to forget, right? So the longer that you wait, the more stuff that you have to remember to put in, and by association, the longer that you will have to spend, typing things into the system. So what I would suggest again is get into the habit of going into the system on a daily basis and really multiple times a day. The most consistent users are going to be those people who are in the system really very regularly, who are taking notes directly into the system, logging calls directly into the system, writing emails through the system. And these are all things that we'll talk about in subsequent training sessions, how to log those calls and how to automatically log emails and things like that. But what I would urge you to do is, as much as possible, use this system as your system of record. Use it on a daily basis. Get into the habit of using it, and then you won't have to worry about coming back a week or two later and spending an hour or multiple hours plugging things into the system, when it really would have gone much more quickly if you were doing that sort of on an active basis. The other thing about inconsistent usage is the idea of teamwork, right? So that imagine a team where there are 10 people on that team and only 5 people are using the system. Any reports that you're looking at really are going to be at best about 50% accurate. So when you're considering how you're using the system, and if you're considering how to measure the system, consider that the more people that you have on your team, the more that you have to pay attention to make sure that all of your people are using it, because one person sort of falling down on the job can drastically reduce the effectiveness and the accuracy of the data that you're looking at. Next thing is lack of measure or success indicators, and this sort of dovetails into unfocused approach in that if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, how can you ever be successful, right? So what I very much encourage you, and again I told you I would be repeating this, but it's all about understanding what your strategy is, what your goals are to accomplish that strategy, and making sure that you have some sort of way to measure your progress against that goal. So there are going to be some people that will have, let's say a goal in terms of the number of calls or emails that they need to make. There are some people that have goals in terms of the amount of money that that they need to be closing. So there's lots of different goals for, again, an organization as complex as ours. All you need to do to help your level of success is simply find a way to measure that and track that in the system, and that will also provide you with a way to, what we call leading indicators, to say, if you know what your goal is and you're measuring yourself against a goal, if you're halfway through whatever that time period is and you've not yet reached half your goal, that you're behind and that you're going to have to step it up to make sure that you do hit that goal by the end of whatever that time period is. Right, so it's a way to help yourself track where you are, to understand exactly what success is and exactly how to accomplish that. The last part is simply a lack of training, a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding of the system, and by attending sessions like this, you are already moving past that, right? So it is very difficult, if not very impossible, for somebody who doesn't know how to navigate a system like Salesforce to ever be successful with it. And that's when we get into lack of training, we get into things like inconsistent use or an unfocused approach, because you're not really sure what you're doing, you're not really sure where to go, you're not really sure how to accomplish what you need to be accomplishing. So, with that, my promise to you is that I won't leave you out in the cold. If you have any questions about anything, you need me to explain or take some time for any part of the system, please just let me know. At the end of this session, all of our contact information will be on there. So if you ever need anything, you can just drop me an email. But when it comes down to it, using Salesforce is very, very easy, as you can see here. So all you need to do to use Salesforce, pretty easy. Log your calls, emails, meetings as they happen. If you have things that are going to happen in the future, you can preload those into the system, right? So that you will have the record of those pre-made, and at the time that you have, let's say next Monday you have a meeting with somebody, then if you put that in today, the system will automatically remind you, and then as you go into that meeting or have that phone call, you can take notes directly into that record that you already created. It's simply a way to get ahead of the curve and to set yourself up for success. As you meet new leads and new contacts, put those into the system if they don't already exist in there. By and large, the 99% of the organizations that you're working with are already going to exist in the system, but sometimes you'll need to take some action to create records for new people that you're meeting. Same thing with your sales opportunities, potential transactions. For those of you who are working on that kind of stuff, as you uncover new pieces of business, just make sure to get those into the system. For those of you who are working on campaigns, they're very, very easy as well. We have lots of good information about campaigns, so set those up, publish them directly to Interact, and then all of your information is up there. Use Salesforce to collaborate with other people across GSA. You can do that by taking a look at information that other people are putting in, as well as reaching out directly to those people and asking any questions or anything that you might need to do. Look at historical information to further your strategy. Really what it comes down to is, again, just getting into the system, using the system on a regular basis. Keep your information updated so that at the point that you need to look at your reports or create reports or what have you, that the information that you need to go into those reports exists in the system, right? That's really what it comes down to. So the one thing that I do want to sort of prep you for in terms of how Salesforce works is the idea of the relationships between the data in this system. So at the top portion of this hierarchy, you can see our account record, which represents our organization. Okay, underneath that organization, we have a couple of different records. We have two records that represent people and another record that represents our transaction, okay, or potential transactions when and if they occur. So our leads and our contacts represent the people that we actually speak with within those organizations, okay. Now, as you can see, these are sort of under the organization umbrella. The opportunities also exist under that account record, under that organization record, because our transactions, of course, are related to those customer organizations. But we also are going to have a customer point of contact for these opportunities or these transactions. So as you can see, your opportunities relate not only to your account or to your organization, but also to a person, all right, or potentially a group of people. But right now, for sake of argument, let's just say a person. Now, underneath these, you can see that we have our different activities: emails, calls, meetings, stuff like that. So when you're having those actual meetings, those meetings can be related to multiple pieces of information. So you might be exchanging an email with a lead, All right, and the cool thing about that is that the system is intelligent enough to know that because this activity is related to this lead, it is also by association related to this organization. Okay, so any historical records that are generated in relation to your people or to your transactions will all filter up underneath this account organization, or the account record that represents your organization. So if I have had multiple conversations, emails, whatever, with Mr. Smurdlap from Parks and Recreation, that would show up under his contact record. And because Mr. Smurdlap is related to this Parks and Rec organization or account in Salesforce, anything that's linked under here will also be available under the account view as well. Okay. So this is a bit more detailed view of our entire CRM data flow. I'm not going to spend too much time on this now, but I will leave this here for you to to pause and to kind of look over in more detail. But what you can see here is that from start to finish, that there is a very logical flow of data that we're trying to accomplish, and that Salesforce as a tool supports each portion of that process, and in doing so also allows us a very powerful mechanism to report and to analyze from a macro level everything that's happening in here, but also down to a very granular level things that are happening in these different portions of the process. The one word of warning that I will give you before just turning you loose on this graphic is just to say that this is a good representation of how CRM systems work. This is not a one-to-one representation of how our GSA Salesforce system works. Our system is just so complex and just to such a high level of customization that it would be extremely difficult and not to mention probably mind-boggling to try to visualize all that here. But for just a general purpose, this is a good outline of what's happening with our CRM. So the other thing that I'll encourage you to do, again, getting back to the idea of using Salesforce to further your goals, right, and to use that in such a way that you can have maybe some leading indicators for your success, or hopefully not, but maybe lack of success coming up to the deadline for your goals, so that if you're maybe underperforming, that you can take some action. So for those of you who are not directly related to sales, you'll excuse me, but for sake of argument, using a pretty cut and dry sales example is the most convenient to sort of demonstrate how a system like this will work. But again, just remember that you can make conversion breakdowns like this for whatever your strategies are. But for most organizations, for most sales organizations, it's a matter of generating new leads and cultivating those leads into eventual one successful business. So if we have a couple of simple breakdowns here. So our lead generation activities are going to yield a certain amount of new leads. Of those new leads that come in, a certain amount of those are going to be what we call qualified or desirable leads, right? Of those desirable leads, a certain number of those are going to yield potential opportunities. They're going to be people who are ready to do business, or they know about some business or something, right? So those potential opportunities yield what we call vetted opportunities, or opportunities that we feel pretty good about, that we know that we have a good chance of winning. And of those vetted opportunities will yield a certain amount of successfully closed and won opportunities. So if we're trying to affect a certain number, a certain amount of closed opportunities, we can take action on any one of these other conversion points if we see that we're coming in a little below average. And so here's a real life example, and for now, just for sake of argument, we'll ignore the activities. But let's say your production goal is 60 million. Let's say that your average transaction is 1 million, and let's say that of every 10 potential deals to come through your door, you're winning 6 of those, a 60% win ratio. Okay, so if you're trying to affect your 60 million production at an average of 1 million with an average win ratio of 60%, you need about 100 potential opportunities in the system, right, to win 60 of those, right? Because your win ratio is 60%. Of those 60 that you won, you multiplied by $1 million each for your average production, and you're looking at successfully hitting your goal. However, if we make a couple adjustments to this, if your average transaction amount changes, if it goes up, well, you know that you need to close less deals, right? Because you're getting to that 60 million more quickly. If it goes down, you know that you're going to have to close more deals because your average amount has lowered. Same thing with your win ratio. If it goes up, you have to win less, or you have to generate less deals because you're winning more. If it goes down, then you have to generate more deals because you're winning less. Okay, so it all that matters is that you figure out what your goal is, what your end goal is. Work backwards from that to figure out how you accomplish those goals, and then figure out, I need to average X in order to hit my goals. And if you are plus X, then you're doing great. And if you're minus X, then you need to take some extra action so that you don't miss your goals. Now, getting into some of the more specific pieces of information related to the system, I just want to do a quick overview of the sort of key vocabulary for you guys. So, as I was saying, Salesforce is very complex, and there are a lot of moving parts. But these are really the 4 that you're probably going to be using on a very regular basis. So. And the other thing to remember is that when we are talking about our leads, contacts, accounts, opportunities, that these words are indicative of specific pieces of the system, specific what we refer to as modules of the system. So they do have very specific definitions that refer to very specific portions of the system, which is why it's important for you to understand exactly what we mean by these. So when we're talking about our leads, we're talking about somebody that we really don't know much about, that we're trying to understand who they are and what they're capable of from a business standpoint. Are these people able to do business with us? So in our lead process, we have a very detailed lead process that we'll go over in our next session. But the purpose of that lead process is to really take these people that we don't know anything about and try to find out more about them and try to uncover the what we'll call the movers and the shakers within those customer organizations. Our contacts are people that we know more about. They've either come through the lead process, or they're previous customers that we've done business with in the past, that we know who they are. We have somewhat regular contact with them. We've had contact with them in the past. The important thing to remember about your leads and your contacts, as we went over just a few moments ago, is that your leads and your contacts represent your people. Okay, so your lead and contact records are going to have, the phone numbers for those people, emails for those people, the historical record of activities for those people. Okay. And the important thing to remember about those is that your people are always related to an organization, right, or an account. So the account is the record that represents that organization in Salesforce, and that's where you'll have all of your main information about the organization, the main phone number, the main website, that kind of stuff. The cool thing about your account record, and again, if you remember back to that chart that we were just looking at, is that all of the data from the people of that organization, the leads and the contacts, will aggregate itself with that account record. So if you wanted to take a look at the historical record for an individual person, you could do that through the lead to the contact record. But if you wanted to see what's happened with all of the people within that organization, you can do that by coming into the account record and viewing that there. Last on this list are our opportunities. Our opportunities represent our transactions, the transactions that affect a financial outcome with that customer. So this won't include any cases or issues or anything like that. It really involves some sort of monetary outcome, that we sold them something, or they took advantage of some service that's saving them money, but that there is some sort of monetary outcome with that opportunity. Okay. So we've talked about some of your benefits as we've come through here, but I just want to wrap up with some of these things that you're going to see. So the reality of the situation is that regardless of how you're using the system, you will have access to very detailed information, to very detailed levels of analysis in terms of really any possible piece of metric that you would want. Salesforce is extremely powerful in its reporting capability, and how it analyzes information and how it aggregates information. So if you ever question, am I able to blank? The answer 9 times out of 10 is going to be yes. It's just a matter of making sure that we can get you the right report, or to visualize that in the way that you would need it. But more often than not, the vast majority of what you need is going to be available to you. One of the things that we'll talk about, especially in terms of our lead management process, but also in other portions of the system, is just our level of automation. Especially when we're trying to do things, many times by many people. The more that we can sort of take the manual effort off of those activities, obviously the more time and effort and money we're going to save as an organization. So one of the things that we're very, very proud of with this application is the idea of the automation available to you. So if you have questions about any of that or how that works, we can definitely talk about that more. But as we go through, I would encourage you to sort of take a look for ways that you can automate some of the things that you're doing on a regular basis. There's a lot of potential for that. So just let me know if there's anything that you'd like to explore more. something that we'll also get into more in the next sections is the idea of reports and dashboards, and just the extreme level of detail that you have available to you in that respect. So again, for those of you who are in maybe a more specific group or portfolio who need maybe some customized reporting, there's a lot of stuff available for you. But just on top of that, there are numerous reports and dashboards available already that should give you a look into some very interesting information. So I would encourage you, for those of you who are interested, to go into the system and to take a look at what reports are in there, again, we'll go over more specific reports and dashboards as we cover our leads and opportunities and case management processes. But for now, just know that there's a lot of good stuff there for you, and you can start poking around in there. Really, what this slide boils down to is sort of a couple ways of saying kind of the same thing. Is you're going to, for those of you who use the system on a regular basis, your ROI in terms of your return on investment, in terms of the time that you spend in the system, will be well rewarded. As I sort of alluded to earlier, the people who use the system more regularly will have better quality data. They will have the data that they need to support those goals that they're trying to reach. So what I would encourage you very, very much to do, again, is to figure out what your goals are, figure out what strategy you want to pursue to accomplish those goals, and set up your usage of Salesforce. And by that I mean the reports that you look at and things like that. Set up your usage of the system in such a way that it will give you relevant information, or information relevant to those goals and strategies, so that you know what your progress is, how you're succeeding in terms of accomplishing that goal. So it is very important for those of you who really want to capitalize on everything that this system can offer, to take advantage of stuff like that. We do have additional training available. I'm sorry, not for account planning, although for any of you who want to discuss more of that, I'm happy to. Lead management is what's coming up next. Opportunity management after that. We will talk about AAS facilitation as a separate issue there, as well as issue and case management. We're going to be talking about the business processes for ITS, GSS, TMVCS later. AAS will be covered as part of opportunity management, and then our BI system integration is more of a future endeavor that we're looking to cover. But as that becomes more of a reality, we'll be sure to keep you guys in the loop. And for those of you who are interested, or need it in the future, here is my contact information. I'm Carl, or you can reach out to Drew or Kenji, who's also working on the Salesforce team. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions about this material, please feel free to send me an email right here. This is my email address, and hopefully we'll see you in the lead management and opportunity management trainings. Thank you.